By the time you turn 60, you've walked through enough storms, carried enough burdens, and wiped away enough tears. Your heart deserves peace, not constant noise. Complainers drain you, not because their struggles aren't real, but because they choose to live in negativity instead of seeking solutions. Their energy spreads like wildfire, pulling you down into a pit you don't deserve to sit in. At 60, you've earned the right to say, "No, I will not carry your weight," when you refuse to carry your own. There comes a point in life, especially when you've reached 60, where you begin to notice a pattern in people. Some relationships feel heavy, not because of what you share, but because of what they constantly demand. These are the users, the ones who only show up when their hands are empty, but never when their hearts should be full. They don't call to ask how you're doing. They don't stop by to celebrate your little victories. They don't check in when you're quiet or when your spirit is low. Instead, their presence is always tied to a need. Can you lend me this? I need your advice again. Do you have time to help me? It's always about them and rarely about you. The danger of users is not just in what they take, it's in how they leave you. They drain your time, your emotional energy, your financial resources, and sometimes even your confidence. And when you pause to reflect, you realize the relationship was never mutual. It was never balanced. It was never built on love, but on convenience. At 60, your time is more valuable than ever. Every hour, every day, every moment is sacred. And it is a tragedy to spend those moments pouring into people who see you as a well that never runs dry. You are not an endless source for others to drink from, while they never once think of pouring back into you. This stage of life demands boundaries. Boundaries that say, "I love you, B. But I cannot be your constant rescue while you refuse to rescue yourself." Boundaries that declare, "I will not be a resource to be used. I am a person to be respected." Healthy relationships at 60 and at any age must be reciprocal. They should feel like a steady exchange of love, encouragement, respect, and care. When you give, you should also be able to receive. That doesn't mean keeping score, but it does mean noticing if you are the only one showing up time after time. If someone only remembers you when they need something, then they don't deserve the gift of your presence. Because at this age, you are called to surround yourself with people who see your worth, not just your usefulness. By the time you turn 60, you've survived enough battles, endured enough hardships, and gathered enough wisdom to know that peace is precious. And one of the greatest threats to your peace is not always loud chaos or major crises. It's the quiet erosion of your spirit that comes from constantly being around complainers. You know the type. The ones who wake up in the morning and find the one cloud in a blue sky. The ones who can take good news and find a way to twist it into something negative. If you tell them about a new opportunity, they'll tell you about all the ways it could fail. If you share a little joy, they'll remind you of why it won't last. The problem with constant complainers is not that they're struggling. We all struggle. The problem is that they choose to stay in struggle. They marinate in negativity and want to pull others into it with them. And if you spend too much time in their company, you begin to notice something subtle happening. Their voice starts to sound like your inner voice. Their hopelessness begins to weaken your hope. Their heavy spirit makes your own steps feel heavier. At 60, your energy is a treasure you cannot afford to waste. You don't have to feel guilty for pulling back from people who only see the bad, who refuse to see the good, and who constantly want to hand you their misery as if it were a gift. Your soul wasn't created to be a dumping ground for endless complaints. Here's the truth. Life is already challenging. We all face losses, disappointments, aches in our bodies, and wounds in our hearts. But even in all that, there is still beauty. There is still laughter, sunsets, children's voices, quiet mornings, and second chances. To stay in a spirit of gratitude is a choice. To stay in a spirit of constant complaint is also a choice. And if someone chooses to always complain, you have the right to choose not to absorb it. Complaining is contagious. Just like joy spreads, so does negativity. And at 60, you cannot afford to let your final chapters be written in bitterness. You need voices around you that remind you of strength, that celebrate small victories, that remind you that life, despite the pain, is still worth smiling through. This does mean you stop being compassionate. It doesn't mean you refuse to listen when someone is genuinely hurting. It means you draw the line between someone who is grieving and someone who is addicted to complaining. The first needs your comfort. The second needs your distance. So at this stage in your life, give yourself permission to step away from the constant complainers. You don't owe them your peace. You don't owe them your energy. You owe yourself the freedom to protect your heart from voices that weigh it down. One of the most painful truths you learn by the time you reach 60 is that not everyone will celebrate your dreams. In fact, some people will do everything they can to crush them. These are the dream killers. They are the ones who carry negativity like a weapon, and they use it to slash at your hope every time you dare to believe in something bigger. You know them because they wear the mask of realism. The moment you say, I've been thinking about starting this, or I'd love to try that, they cut you down with words like, you're too old for that. That's impossible at your age. Why don't you just settle? They package their discouragement as wisdom, but it's not wisdom, it's fear. Their own unhealed fear. And here's the truth, their negativity has nothing to do with your dream. It has everything to do with their limits. They're not really saying you can't do it. They're saying they can't imagine themselves doing it. And so they project their small vision of life onto your wide open horizon. But at 60, you have to protect your dreams with the same urgency that you protect your health. Because your dreams are not childish fantasies, they are proof that your soul is still alive. The fact that you can imagine, that you can hope, that you can still see possibility, that's a sacred gift, and no one has the right to take that from you. Remember this, you are not too old to begin again. Some of the world's greatest achievements were born in the later chapters of people's lives. There are books written, businesses launched, ministries started, and legacies built by people who refuse to let the clock dictate their destiny. Dream killers will laugh at that idea. They'll say, what's the point now? But the point is simple. Life is not measured by how many years you've lived. It's measured by how much life you've poured into the years you have left. And at 60, you may have less time than before, but you have far more wisdom. You know what matters. You know who you are. You know what you won't waste time on anymore, and that makes your dreams even more powerful. If you surround yourself with dream killers, you'll start shrinking your vision just to fit their doubts. But if you surround yourself with encouragers, the ones who say, go for it, the ones who believe in you even when you're unsure, you'll find your courage growing every day. So here's the decision you must make. When someone constantly tears down your dreams, stop inviting them into your conversations about the future. Not everyone deserves to hear your vision. Some people only deserve your silence. Protect your dream just like you would protect a seed in its early stages, because it only needs the right soil, not the wrong hands. At 60, dream killers must have no place in your circle, because the years ahead of you are too valuable to be wasted on people who cannot see what you see. Choose to stand with those who water your hope, not those who choke it. By the time you turn 60, one thing becomes clear. Peace of mind is more valuable than approval, and integrity is more precious than popularity. And nothing robs peace faster. Nothing corrodes integrity deeper than surrounding yourself with gossip spreaders. Gossip may look harmless on the surface. It often disguises itself as casual talk, a harmless story, or just sharing. But underneath, it's poison. It destroys trust, damages reputations, and plants seeds of division. At this age, you've seen enough to know the person who eagerly gossips to you will just as quickly gossip about you. Gossipers thrive on drama because it makes them feel important. They rarely create, rarely build, rarely encourage. Instead, they stir, they spread, they infect. And if you stay too close, you'll find yourself pulled into a cycle of conversations that leave you feeling heavy, suspicious, and spiritually drained. At 60, you must protect your heart from this cycle. Why? Because your years ahead are too short to be wasted on noise that produces nothing. Gossip never heals. Gossip never solves. Gossip never grows. It only shrinks hearts, fractures communities, and replaces joy with bitterness. And here's the painful truth. Gossipers are not always strangers. Sometimes they are people in your own family, your longtime friends, even those who claim to love you. That makes it harder to step back, but it also makes it more necessary. Because every time you allow gossip to linger in your space, you're telling your soul, I am willing to carry someone else's poison. Silence in the face of gossip is not weakness, it's wisdom. Walking away is not rudeness, it's self-respect. You don't owe anyone an audience for their small talk when their small talk destroys lives. Instead, fill your circle with people who use their words to lift, not to tear. People who talk about ideas, about purpose, about growth, not about the failures and flaws of others. At 60, you don't need whispers and corners. You need voices that cheer for you in the open. So make the choice. When gossip enters the room, you exit. When someone invites you into drama, decline the invitation. When people notice your silence, let them. Your silence is your shield. Your refusal is your freedom. Life is too short to waste your final chapters in conversations that add no value. And peace is too sacred to sacrifice for the thrill of being in the know. Let gossip spreaders find another crowd to entertain because your life is now about peace, purpose, and authenticity. At 60, one of the hardest truths you come to accept is that not everyone who smiles at you actually loves you, and not everyone who says, I need you, truly values you. Some people only need you because of what they can gain. And among the most dangerous to your peace are the emotional manipulators. These are not always loud abusers. They are often subtle, soft-spoken, and skilled at twisting situations so that you always end up feeling guilty. They know which strings to pull in your heart. They'll play the victim when they're wrong, and they'll remind you of your kindness when they want to take advantage of it. They'll say things like, after everything I've done for you, if you really loved me, you'd do this. I can't believe you'd treat me this way. It's not love, it's control, and control wears you down. By the time you reach 60, your energy is too sacred to be trapped in cycles where someone else decides how you should feel. Emotional manipulators want you to doubt yourself, question your choices, and carry their burdens on top of your own. They thrive when you silence your needs to meet theirs. And the longer you allow them access, the smaller you become. But here's what wisdom teaches you. Your worth is not tied to how much you sacrifice for others. You are not here to be someone else's endless fixer, rescuer, or emotional punching bag. At this stage of life, you are allowed, without apology, to protect your peace. Boundaries are your safeguard. Saying no without over-explaining is your strength. Refusing to play their games is your freedom. And yes, they will accuse you of being selfish, but let me tell you, protecting your soul is not selfish, it's survival. And here's something even deeper. Manipulators only win when you keep trying to prove your love to them. Once you stop explaining, stop apologizing, stop giving in, their power breaks. Their hold on you ends. At 60, your future must belong to truth, not games. You deserve relationships where love is free, not forced, where care is mutual, not demanded, where respect flows both ways, not just one. Emotional manipulators cannot give you that because their goal is not love, it's control. So let this be your line in the sand. I will no longer shrink myself to fit someone else's expectations. I will no longer let guilt decide my choices. I will no longer mistake manipulation for love. You've walked too far, survived too much, and gained too much wisdom to let your final chapters be written under someone else's control. Emotional manipulators may knock at the door of your heart, but at 60, you finally know you don't have to open it. By the time you turn 60, you've carried decades of responsibilities, endured countless challenges, and poured yourself out for family, friends, work, and community. You've been the shoulder, the provider, the peacemaker, the encourager, and yet some of the deepest wounds don't come from strangers. They come from the people who never celebrate you. These are the ones who go silent when you succeed, the ones who look away when you shine, the ones who minimize your victories as if they were accidents or luck. They may smile to your face, but behind that smile is discomfort, even resentment. And you can feel it, because at 60, your intuition is sharp enough to recognize who's genuinely happy for you and who secretly hopes you fail. The danger of being around people who never celebrate you is not just that they don't clap, it's that they condition you to shrink. You start lowering your voice when you share good news. You downplay your accomplishments. You hide your blessings. You live small so they won't feel uncomfortable. And slowly, you begin to believe that your light is too bright, when in truth, their eyes are simply too weak. But hear this clearly. At 60, you no longer have the luxury of silencing your joy to make someone else feel better. You've earned every laugh line, every scar, every victory, every lesson. You've walked too far to apologize for your glow. If someone cannot stand beside you and cheer, they do not deserve a front row seat in your life. Celebration matters because it reflects love. People who celebrate you are people who see you. They're the ones who remember your struggles and rejoice when they see you rise. They're the ones who clap loudly, not because they have nothing going on in their own lives, but because they believe there is enough room in the world for all of us to shine.